Alex Morgan signs the last document with a steady hand, sliding it across the polished mahogany table to her soon-to-be ex-husband. "Seriously, Alex? You're contesting the settlement?" Blake says, his voice dripping with condescension as he loosens his designer tie. "On what grounds? You've been just a housewife for the past 12 years. "Just a housewife," Alex repeats, meeting his gaze without flinching. The words hang in the air between them. Blake's attorney clears his throat. "Mr. Wilson has built Wilson Ventures from the ground up. Mrs. Wilson has been, well, maintaining the household." "That's one way to put it," Blake scoffs. "While I was building a tech empire, she was arranging dinner parties and choosing curtain patterns." Alex says nothing, simply watches as her husband of 12 years dismisses her entire existence with a wave of his hand. "My client is entitled to fair compensation for her contributions to the marriage," Alex's attorney, Vanessa Clark, interjects. Blake laughs. "Contributions? Come on, Vanessa. She's got the house in Westlake. That's more than generous considering she hasn't worked. A day since we got married." Alex stands, gathering her purse and jacket. "I think we're done here for today." "Running away from reality as usual?" Blake calls after her. She pauses at the door, turning back to face the man who once promised to love her forever. "No, Blake. For the first time in a long time, I'm facing it head-on. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from, and if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss." The brisk autumn air hits Alex's face as she exits the downtown Seattle law office, bringing a welcome clarity after the stifling atmosphere of the conference room. She takes a deep breath, adjusting the collar of her coat against the wind coming off Puget Sound. "Mrs. Wilson! Alex!" Vanessa's heels click rapidly on the pavement behind her. "We need to discuss strategy. Blake's not budging on the investment portfolio." "Let him have it," Alex says, surprising herself with how little she cares about the stocks and bonds Blake had always bragged about at dinner parties. Vanessa frowns. "That portfolio is worth millions. You're entitled to half under Washington state law." Alex motions toward a nearby coffee shop. "I need caffeine for this conversation." Inside Emerald City Brews, away from Blake's demeaning stare and his attorney's predatory gaze, Alex finally allows her shoulders to relax. The familiar scent of espresso and pastries provides a strange comfort amid the chaos her life has become. "Dink. Can have his precious portfolio," Alex says after ordering an Americano. "There are other assets I'm more concerned about." Vanessa leans forward, her expression shifting from confusion to curiosity. "What aren't you telling me, Alex?" Alex takes a sip of her coffee, buying time. For 12 years, she's kept certain aspects of her life carefully compartmentalized. Blake had his business, and she had, well, what Blake dismissively called housewife hobbies. "Vanessa, do you know what I did before I married Blake? You were in finance, right? Some kind of analyst position?" Alex nods. "Investment strategy. At Rainier Capital. I was on track to make a partner before I left to support Blake's startup and start a family. The family that never happened," Vanessa says gently. Alex's throat tightens. After 3 miscarriages, Blake had decided children weren't in the cards for them. He'd thrown himself even deeper into his work, while Alex had been left to redesign her future yet again. "Blake thinks I've spent the last 12 years planning charity galas and redecorating our house," Alex says. "And I have done those things. But they weren't all I did." Alex pulls out her phone, opening an app that Vanessa doesn't recognize. After entering a complex password, she slides the phone across the table. Vanessa's eyes widen as she scrolls through the information. "Alex, are these investment portfolios, real estate holdings, angel investments in—" She pauses, looking up in disbelief. "Are you an early investor in mediocre?" "Among others," Alex confirms. "Blake gave me a monthly allowance for household expenses." He never asked for receipts, never questioned where the money went. He assumed I was spending it on clothes and spa days. And instead you were building this? Vanessa gestures at the phone. How did Blake not know? Alex takes back her phone, locking the screen. Blake sees what he expects to see. He expected a trophy wife, so that's what he saw. He never bothered to look deeper. These assets must be disclosed in the divorce proceedings, Vanessa warns. Hidden assets can result in— They're not hidden, Alex interrupts. They're separate property. I established them using inherited money from my grandmother before we were married, then grew them with my allowance. Blake's name isn't on any of it. I've maintained them as separate entities throughout our marriage. Vanessa's legal mind is clearly racing. If you can prove the initial capital came from premarital assets and that Blake had no involvement. I can prove it all, Alex assures her. Every transaction has been meticulously documented. Why keep this from Blake all these years? Vanessa asks. Alex stares into her coffee, watching the dark liquid swirl as she considers the question. At first, it was just a way to keep my skills sharp. Blake was so dismissive when I suggested helping with his business finances. He wanted me to be the perfect executive's wife, not his equal. She looks up, meeting Vanessa's gaze. Then, as his success grew, so did his ego. The more he dismissed me as just a housewife, the more determined I became to prove him wrong, at least to myself. Eventually, it became clear that our marriage was a facade. That's when my investments became my escape plan. And now that escape plan is being activated, Vanessa surmises. Exactly, Alex confirms, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. Alex's phone buzzes with a text message. She glances at it and frowns. Blake's calling an emergency meeting at the house tonight. Apparently there's a situation with one of his investments that could impact our divorce proceedings. Vanessa checks her own phone. Yes, I just got an email from his attorney. They're claiming financial hardship due to a major investment falling through. They want to renegotiate the settlement. Alex's laugh is hollow. Of course they do. Blake's never taken responsibility for a failure in his life. She stands, gathering her things. I'll see you at the house at 7. The Wilson estate sits atop Queen Anne Hill, offering panoramic views of the Seattle skyline and Elliott Bay. Alex drives through the security gate, noting with some satisfaction that she still has access. Blake hasn't changed the codes yet. Another oversight born of his assumptions about her technological competence. As she parks her Audi next to Blake's ostentatious Maserati, Alex steels herself for the confrontation ahead. The house, all 8,000 square feet of it, had never felt like home. It was a showcase, designed to impress Blake's business associates and clients. Inside, voices echo from Blake's home office. Alex follows the sound, finding Blake, his attorney, Thomas Prescott, and a third man she doesn't recognize huddled around Blake's desk. Alex? Blake acknowledges her curtly. Where's your attack dog? Vanessa will be here shortly, Alex replied coolly. Care to introduce me? The stranger stands, offering his hand. Daniel Foster, Chief Financial Officer at Wilson Ventures. Alex shakes his hand, noting his firm grip and direct gaze. I wasn't aware Wilson Ventures had a CFO. Last I heard, Blake was handling the finances himself. Blake shifts uncomfortably. Daniel came on board 6 months ago. We've been expanding. Alex offers Daniel a polite smile. And now you're experiencing financial hardship. That was quick. Mrs. Wilson, Thomas Prescott interjects, the situation is complex. A major investment. Opportunity has fallen through, resulting in significant losses for Mr. Wilson's company. This necessitates a reassessment of the divorce settlement. The doorbell rings, signaling Vanessa's arrival. Blake gestures impatiently for Alex to get it. The housekeeper has the night off, Alex explains, not moving. You'll have to get that. Yourself, Blake. Blake's jaw tightens as he strides past her to answer the door. Daniel Foster watches this exchange with barely concealed interest. "Mrs. Wilson," he says quietly while Blake is out of earshot, "you might want to look into quantum dynamics. It's the investment that's causing all this disruption." Before Alex can respond, Blake returns with Vanessa. "Now that everyone's here," Blake announces, resuming his seat at the head of the desk. "Let's get to the point. Wilson Ventures has suffered a significant setback. The settlement terms we discussed are no longer viable. Specifically," Vanessa prompts, opening her laptop, "the house will need to be sold," Blake states flatly, "and the alimony payments will need to be reduced by at least 60%. Alex maintains a neutral expression, even as anger flares inside her. The house doesn't matter to her, it never did. But Blake's attempt to reduce her financial independence is typical of his controlling nature. "What exactly happened with this investment?" Alex asks, directing her question to Daniel Foster rather than Blake. Daniel glances at Blake, who nods, reluctantly. "Wilson Ventures invested heavily in a quantum computing startup called Quantum Dynamics," Daniel explains. "They promised revolutionary technology that would disrupt multiple industries. Last week, their CTO left abruptly, taking key technical staff with him. Word is they've hit insurmountable technical challenges. The company's valuation has plummeted." "And you put how much into this venture?" Alex asks Blake directly. Blake's expression darkens. "That's company business, Alex. The point is, I don't have the liquidity we thought I had. Mr. Wilson invested $43 million in quantum dynamics," Daniel states, ignoring Blake's glare. "Representing approximately 30% of Wilson Ventures' available capital." Vanessa whistles softly. "That's a significant risk concentration for a single investment." "It was a calculated risk," Blake snaps. "One that would have paid off enormously if the technology had been viable?" Alex finishes for him. "Did you conduct proper due diligence, Blake? Or were you too excited by the prospect of being first in a new market?" Blake's face flushes with anger. "You have no idea what you're talking about. You've never understood business." "Actually," Daniel interjects, surprising everyone, "Mrs. Wilson's question is valid. Our due diligence on quantum dynamics was expedited. Mr. Wilson was eager to secure the investment before competitors became aware of the opportunity." Blake stands abruptly. "Daniel, that's enough. You work for me, remember?" "I work for Wilson Ventures," Daniel corrects calmly. "And my fiduciary duty is to the company, not to any individual." The tension in the room is palpable. Alex studies Daniel Foster with new interest. He's either exceptionally principled or playing some angle she doesn't yet understand. "Regardless of how this situation arose," Thomas Prescott says, steering the conversation back to safer ground, "the fact remains that Mr. Wilson's financial circumstances have changed materially. This necessitates a revision of the settlement terms." Vanessa closes her laptop. "We'll need to see complete financial records for Wilson Ventures, including all documentation related to the quantum dynamics investment. Until we've had time to review those materials, our current settlement discussions are on hold." "That's proprietary company information," Blake objects. "A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off." "Which is relevant to determining your actual financial position," Vanessa counters. "Unless you'd prefer to maintain the originally proposed settlement terms?" Blake's expression makes his answer clear. "I thought not," Vanessa continues. "Email the documents to my office by noon tomorrow. We'll reconvene after we've had time to review them." As the meeting breaks up, Alex notices Daniel Foster lingering behind as Blake walks Thomas Prescott to the door. "Mrs. Wilson," Daniel says quietly, "there's more to the quantum dynamics situation than Mr. Wilson is admitting. If you're interested in the full story, I could use a good cup of coffee tomorrow morning." Alex studies him, trying to discern his motives. Why would you help me? Daniel glances toward the doorway where Blake has disappeared. Let's just say, I've worked for men like Blake Wilson before. They never learn from their mistakes because they never acknowledge making any. He hands her a business card. Pike Place Market, 9 a.m., the coffee shop across from the fish throwers. Before Alex can respond, Blake returns. Daniel straightens, nodding professionally to them both before departing. What did Foster want? Blake demands once they're alone. To apologize for the awkward situation, Alex lies smoothly. He seems like a decent man. I'm surprised you hired him. Blake snorts. He's good with numbers, terrible with people. Doesn't understand that business requires bold moves. Like betting nearly half your liquid capital on an unproven technology? You don't get to judge my business decisions, Alex, Blake snaps. Playing the stock market with your allowance doesn't make you Warren Buffett. Alex feels the familiar urge to defend herself, to reveal just how successful her playing has been. But she restrains herself. Blake's dismissal has been her greatest asset all these years. His underestimation of her has allowed her to build her own empire right under his nose. You're right, Blake. I'm just a housewife. What would I know about high-stakes investments? She turns to leave, then pauses. By the way, I'll be moving out of the house by the end of the week. You can start showing it to potential buyers immediately. Blake's surprise is evident. Where are you going to go? I've had a condo in Capitol Hill for years, Alex reveals, enjoying the confusion on Blake's face. I've been renting it out. The current lease happens to be ending this month. You bought property without telling me? It was before we were married, Alex lies, watching Blake's expression carefully. From my grandmother's inheritance. I kept it as a backup plan. Always hedging your bets, aren't you? Blake's tone is bitter. I learned from the best, Alex replies, allowing a small smile. Good night, Blake. Do send those financial records to Vanessa. I'd hate for things to get complicated. As Alex drives away from the house she never loved, a strange lightness fills her chest. For the first time in years, she's not playing a part. The mask of the perfect, supportive wife is slipping away, revealing the woman she's been becoming, in secret all along. Her phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. Baker Street Coffee, 9 a.m. tomorrow. Come alone. DF. Alex smiles to herself as she drives toward her Capitol Hill condo, a property she actually purchased 3 years into her marriage, not before as she'd told Blake. It was the first in what would become a substantial real estate portfolio, all funded by her housewife allowance and the growing returns from her other investments. Tomorrow would bring a meeting with Daniel Foster and whatever information he wanted to share about quantum dynamics. But tonight, Alex would sleep in her own space, surrounded by her own things, free from the weight of Blake's expectations and dismissal. For tonight, that's victory enough. The aroma of freshly roasted coffee beans fills Baker Street Coffee, a cozy establishment tucked between a bookstore and an artisanal cheese shop in Pike Place Market. Alex arrives 15 minutes early, choosing a corner table with a view of both the entrance and the famous fish-throwing display across the way. She orders a cappuccino and opens her tablet, reviewing the information she'd gathered overnight on quantum dynamics. The startup had appeared seemingly out of nowhere 18 months ago, securing significant funding rounds despite having no commercial product. Their promised breakthrough in quantum computing architecture had attracted attention from major tech players, including, apparently, Blake Wilson. At precisely 9 a.m., Daniel Foster walks through the door. He spots Alex immediately, nodding in acknowledgement as he approaches the counter to order. He's dressed more casually today in dark jeans and a navy sweater, the corporate polish of yesterday replaced by a more authentic demeanor. Mrs. Wilson, he greets her, sliding into the seat opposite with a steaming mug of black coffee. Please, call me Alex, she replies. Mrs. Wilson feels increasingly like someone else's identity. Daniel smiles briefly. Alex, then. Thanks for meeting me. I'm curious why Wilson Ventures' CFO wants to share company secrets with the CEO's estranged wife, Alex says, getting straight to the point. Doesn't seem like a career-enhancing move. I'm not planning on staying with Wilson Ventures long-term, Daniel admits. And some things matter more than career advancement. Such as integrity, truth. He takes a sip of his coffee. Financial regulatory compliance. Alex's interest sharpens. Blake is violating regulations? Daniel glances around the cafe before leaning in. What do you know about quantum dynamics? Only what I researched last night. Promising startup, revolutionary, quantum computing architecture, suddenly in free fall after key technical staff departed. She pauses. And apparently the recipient of $43 million of my husband's money. Daniel nods. That's the official story. The reality is more complicated. He pulls out his phone, opening a secure folder and sliding it across. To Alex. On the screen is an email from Blake to someone named Marcus Harrington at a Gmail address. Marcus Harrington is the CEO of Quantum Dynamics, Daniel explains as Alex reads. The email is brief. Marcus, transfer complete. Paperwork shows standard Series B investment terms as discussed. Separate arrangement remains confidential. BW. What separate arrangement? Alex asks, looking up from the phone. That's what caught my attention, Daniel says, taking back his phone. I found this while conducting a standard audit of our investment processes. When I asked Blake about it, he dismissed it as just language and said I was being pedantic. But you don't think so? Daniel shakes his head. After that conversation, I started digging deeper. The more questions I asked, the more defensive Blake became. Then last week, he suddenly announced that Quantum Dynamics was collapsing and that Wilson Ventures had lost its investment. You don't believe that's what actually happened, Alex surmises. I believe Quantum Dynamics is shutting down, yes, but I don't believe the money is actually lost. Daniel takes another sip of his coffee. I think Blake used Wilson Ventures to funnel money into Quantum Dynamics, which then transferred a significant portion back to Blake personally through offshore accounts. Alex sits back, processing this information. You're suggesting my husband is embezzling from his own company? Technically, it would be wire fraud and tax evasion, Daniel corrects. And I don't have definitive proof, just a series of suspicious coincidences and unusual money movements. Why are you telling me this? Daniel studies her for a moment. Because Blake's sudden financial hardship directly impacts your divorce settlement. And because I've seen men like Blake walk away from the wreckage they create, leaving others to suffer the consequences. You seem to have strong feelings about this. A shadow passes over Daniel's face. My father was like Blake, charismatic, successful, utterly self-centered. He was embezzled from his company to maintain his lifestyle during a divorce from my mother. When it came crashing down, he fled the country. My mother was left with nothing but debts and suspicion. Understanding dawns. So this is personal for you? I suppose it is, Daniel acknowledges. But that doesn't make my concerns any less valid. What exactly are you proposing, Daniel? An alliance, he says simply. I have financial expertise and inside access to Wilson Ventures. You have motivation and, I suspect, resources of your own. He pauses. Am I wrong about that? Alex considers him carefully. This could be an elaborate trap set by Blake. Or Daniel could be pursuing his own agenda, using her as a pawn. But her instincts, honed through years of investment decisions, tell her he's being genuine. You're not wrong, she admits. I've maintained my own investments throughout my marriage. Blake has no idea. Daniel's expression brightens with interest. Independent of Wilson Ventures? Completely separate. Different sectors, different strategy, different risk profile. Impressive, he says with what appears to be genuine admiration. Most spouses of successful entrepreneurs get absorbed into their partner's financial identity. Blake never wanted a partner, Alex says. He wanted an accessory. Daniel nods in understanding. So, are you interested in working together to uncover what Blake's really doing with quantum dynamics? What exactly would this alliance entail? Alex asks. I continue my internal investigation at Wilson Ventures, documenting everything I find. You use your resources to investigate from the outside, quantum dynamics, Marcus Harrington, any offshore entities that might be involved. And if we find proof of fraud, we ensure it comes to light during your divorce proceedings, Daniel says. Blake won't be able to claim financial hardship if he's exposed for hiding assets. Alex considers the proposal. It's risky. Blake would be furious if he discovered their collaboration. But the potential reward is significant. Not just a fair divorce settlement, but perhaps justice for years of Blake's dismissal and disrespect. I have one condition, Alex says finally. Whatever we discover, we handle legally. No shortcuts, no gray areas. If Blake has committed fraud, we let the proper authorities deal with him. Agreed, Daniel says without hesitation. I'll continue my internal investigation. Can you look into quantum dynamics from the outside? Alex nods. I have connections in the venture capital world from my previous career. I can make some discreet inquiries. Perfect. Daniel pulls out a business card, writing something on the back before sliding it across the table. That's my personal number. Encrypted messaging only, Signal or Proton Mail. No texts, no calls to my work phone. Understood. Alex tucks the card into her wallet. How much time do we have? Blake is pushing to finalize the divorce quickly, probably to get everything settled before his financial maneuvering comes to light. I'd say 2 weeks, maybe 3 at most. Then we'd better get started. Alex stands, gathering her things. I'll be in touch soon. As they part ways outside the cafe, Alex feels a strange sense of purpose she hasn't experienced in years. The challenge ahead is daunting, but she's no longer facing it alone. For the first time since discovering Blake's affair with his assistant, 6 months ago, Alex feels like she might emerge from this divorce not just intact, but stronger. The Capitol Hill condo welcomes Alex with morning sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. At just under 2,500 square feet, it's modest compared to the Queen Anne mansion, but every element has been chosen by Alex herself. Modern furnishings in cool blues and grays create a calm, sophisticated atmosphere that reflects her true aesthetic, not the ostentatious luxury Blake preferred. Alex settles at her desk in the spare bedroom she's converted to a home office. 3 monitors display different aspects of her financial empire: a property management dashboard showing her real estate holdings, a portfolio tracker for her stock investments, and now a research document on quantum dynamics. Her phone rings. Vanessa Clark, her attorney. Alex, have you seen the financial disclosures from Blake's team? Vanessa asks without preamble. Not yet. Did they finally send them? Yes, and they're creative, to put it mildly. Blake is claiming that Wilson Ventures is facing a liquidity crisis due to the quantum dynamics collapse. He's valued his ownership stake at less than half what he claimed during our initial negotiations. Convenient timing, Alex observes. Extremely, Vanessa agrees. I've requested additional documentation to support these new valuations. In the meantime, how quickly can you provide details of your separate assets? If Blake is trying to hide money, we need to be completely transparent about yours. Alex hesitates. She'd planned to reveal her investments eventually, but had hoped to gather more information about Blake's activities first. Now she needs to accelerate her timeline. I'll send everything over by the end of the day, she promises. After ending the call, Alex turns her attention to researching Marcus Harrington, CEO of Quantum Dynamics. His online presence is surprisingly limited for a tech executive. LinkedIn shows an impressive but vague career trajectory through several tech companies, None for more than 3 years. His educational credentials include a computer science degree from MIT. But when Alex calls a contact in MIT's alumni office, they have no record of Marcus Harrington graduating in the year listed. Curiouser and curiouser. Alex sends a message to Daniel via Signal. Harrington's background doesn't. Check out. MIT degree appears fabricated. Any corporate records on him at WV? The response comes an hour later. Limited documentation. Blake handled most quantum dynamics interactions personally. Found something interesting, though. Harrington and Blake were roommates at Stanford. This new connection sends Alex down another research path. By mid-afternoon, she's uncovered articles featuring photos of Blake and Marcus together at Stanford's business school, class of 2004. They weren't just roommates. They were best friends, mentioned together in several campus newspaper stories about budding entrepreneurs. Why would Blake invest in his friend's company without disclosing their prior relationship? The potential conflict of interest alone raised serious questions about Blake's judgment, or suggested something more nefarious. Alex's doorbell rings, interrupting her investigation. Through the security camera, she sees a courier holding a Dios, large envelope. After signing for it, she finds inside a USB drive with a note in Daniel's handwriting. Financial records too sensitive for digital transmission. Review immediately. The drive contains hundreds of documents related to Wilson Ventures' investment in quantum dynamics. Alex spends hours poring over the material, her financial background allowing her to spot discrepancies that might elude others. The official investment documents show Wilson Ventures purchasing preferred shares at a valuation that seemed reasonable based on quantum dynamics' claimed technological breakthroughs. But buried in the accompanying bank records is evidence of something more complex. The $43 million hadn't been transferred as a single investment. Instead, it had been moved in 5 separate transactions over 3 months, each just under $9 million, a threshold that would trigger additional internal approvals at Wilson Ventures. Even more suspicious, each transfer was followed within days by a payment from Quantum Dynamics to a consulting firm called Horizon Strategic Advisors for technical assessment services. These payments totaled nearly $15 million. Alex searches for information on Horizon Strategic Advisors, but finds only a bare-bones website with no named executives or employees. The company is registered in Delaware with no public ownership information. As night falls, Alex sends another message to Daniel. Found payments from QD to Horizon Strategic Advisors. Any connection to BW? His reply is immediate. Checking now. Never seen that name in our records. 20 minutes later, her phone pings again. Horizon not in our vendor database. We'll investigate further tomorrow. Be careful. BW asking questions about who accessed QD files. Alex feels a chill. Blake is aware that someone is looking into quantum dynamics. She needs to accelerate her plans. The next morning, Alex meets with Vanessa to review her separate assets. The attorney's eyes widen as Alex walks her through the documentation of her investments. Alex, this is remarkable, Vanessa says, scrolling through the portfolio summary. Your separate assets are worth more than what Blake is claiming for, his entire stake in Wilson Ventures. I've been careful and consistent, Alex explains. Every investment can be traced back to either my premarital assets or the household allowance Blake provided, which he gave me with no restrictions on use. This changes our entire strategy, Vanessa muses. Blake thinks you're financially dependent on him. If he realized you have your own fortune, he'd be furious, Alex finishes. His ego couldn't handle it. We could use that, Vanessa suggests. Reveal your assets at a strategic moment to gain leverage in negotiations. Alex considers this. Not yet. I have reason to believe Blake may be engaged in financial improprieties related to quantum dynamics. If that's true, his claimed financial hardship is fraudulent. Vanessa's expression turns serious. Do you have evidence of this? Working on it, Alex admits. I need a little more time. Time is something we may not have. Blake's team is pushing for a quick resolution. Judge Harmon has scheduled a settlement conference for next Friday. 1 week, Alex murmurs. Can you stall? I can request additional financial disclosures. Demand a formal valuation of Wilson Ventures. That might buy us another week, maybe 2. Do it, Alex decides. And Vanessa? Don't disclose my assets yet. Let's keep that as our ace in the hole. As Alex leaves Vanessa's office, her phone buzzes. With a message from Daniel. Need to meet. Urgent. Original location, noon. At Baker Street Coffee, Daniel appears nervous, constantly scanning the room as he speaks in hushed tones. Blake knows someone accessed the quantum dynamics files, he says, gripping his coffee mug tightly. He's ordered an IT audit to identify who viewed the documents. Will they be able to trace it to you? Eventually, yes. I used my administrative credentials. Daniel runs a hand through his hair. But I found something before I had to stop looking. Horizon Strategic Advisors is registered to a law firm that specializes in creating shell companies. The same firm set up an entity called Avalon Partners in the Cayman Islands 3 months before the quantum dynamics investment. And Avalon Partners is connected to Blake? I haven't confirmed it yet, but I found an email where Blake referenced the Avalon arrangement in a message to his personal financial advisor. Alex processes this information. So your theory is that Blake invested Wilson Ventures' money in his friend's company, which then paid a significant portion to a shell company, which somehow channeled the money back to Blake through an offshore entity. Exactly, Daniel confirms. Classic round-trip transaction to disguise embezzlement. The failed investment story provides cover for why the money's gone from Wilson Ventures, while Blake personally profits. We need proof of Blake's connection. To Avalon Partners, Alex says. That's going to be difficult. Cayman Islands entities are designed for privacy. Alex considers their options. Maybe we don't need to prove the connection directly. If we can show that Blake has assets or income that don't match his disclosed finances, that might be enough to trigger a more thorough investigation. How would we do that? Blake maintains a personal financial advisor separate from Wilson Ventures. Corporate finance team, Alex explains. Edward Chambers at Pinnacle Wealth Management. He's managed Blake's personal investments for years. Can you get information from him? Alex smiles. As it happens, Edward and I have remained on friendly terms. He never approved of how Blake dismissed my financial acumen. You think he'd help us? Not directly, Alex clarifies. But I might be able to get some useful information during a supposedly casual conversation. Daniel looks skeptical. Blake would fire him if he disclosed confidential information. Edward is 3 years from retirement and has a roster of clients much wealthier than Blake. Alex counters. He might be willing to bend some rules, especially if he believes Blake is engaged in fraud. It's worth a try, Daniel concedes. But be careful. Blake is getting paranoid. He called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. About what? He didn't say, but I'm concerned he might be laying the groundwork to explain the lost investment to the board before anyone starts asking uncomfortable questions. Alex reaches across the table, briefly touching Daniel's hand. You're taking a significant professional risk by helping me. It's the right thing to do, he says simply. My father's victims never got justice. Maybe Blake Wilson's will. As they prepare to leave, Daniel hesitates. There's something else you should know. Blake has been seeing someone, a woman named Melissa Lawson. She's an executive at Takari Systems. I know about the affair, Alex says, surprised by how little the information affects her now. That's what triggered our separation 6 months ago. What you might not know is that Takari Systems was bidding against Quantum Dynamics for a major government contract. If Quantum Dynamics was never legitimate, then Blake might have been trying to sabotage Takari's competitor while sleeping with their executive, Alex concludes. That adds another potential motive. And another potential crime, Daniel adds. Corporate espionage carries serious penalties. They part ways with a promise to meet again in 2 days. As Alex walks back to her condo, she feels both energized by their progress and anxious about the challenges ahead. Blake has always been ruthless in business. If he discovers their investigation, he won't hesitate to retaliate. But for the first time in their relationship, Alex isn't the passive, underestimated housewife. She's his equal, or perhaps more than his equal, in this high-stakes game of financial chess. And unlike Blake, who's playing to win at any cost, Alex is playing for something more valuable, the truth and the vindication it will bring. That evening, as Alex reviews her own investment portfolio, she realizes something that brings a smile to her face. While Blake was apparently engaging in complex financial fraud to enrich himself, Alex had legitimately grown her housewife allowance into a fortune that rivaled his. The irony isn't lost on her. The very dismissal that had wounded her for years had ultimately become her greatest advantage. Tomorrow, she'll contact Edward Chambers and see what information she can extract about Blake's hidden assets. For tonight, she allows herself a rare moment of satisfaction. The game is far from over, but at least now she's playing with a full deck, and perhaps a partner she can trust. The offices of Pinnacle Wealth Management occupy the 38th floor of Columbia Tower, offering sweeping views of Seattle's waterfront. Alex steps off the elevator, dressed in a tailored charcoal suit that projects confidence and competence, an image far removed from the trophy wife persona Blake had expected her to embody. Mrs. Wilson, what a pleasant surprise. Edward Chambers greets her, emerging from his corner office. At 62, Edward maintains the trim physique of an avid golfer and the sharp mind of someone who spent decades navigating the complexities of wealth management for Seattle's elite. Edward, thank you for squeezing me in. Alex accepts his handshake, noting the genuine warmth in his expression. For you, always. He ushers her into his office, closing the door behind them. Though I must admit I was intrigued by your request. You mentioned concerns about Blake's financial disclosures? Alex takes a seat in one of the leather chairs facing Edward's desk. I'm sure you're aware Blake and I are divorcing. Edward nods. He mentioned it during our last quarterly review. I'm sorry things have taken this turn. Blake is claiming sudden financial hardship due to a failed investment in quantum dynamics, Alex explains, watching Edward's reaction carefully. He's substantially devalued his Wilson Ventures holdings in our divorce proceedings. A flash of something, surprise, concern, crosses Edward's face before his professional mask returns. I see. And you're questioning the accuracy of his claims? Let's just say I have reason to believe Blake's financial situation may be more complex than he's representing to the court. Alex leans forward slightly. Edward, I know you can't violate client confidentiality. I'm not asking you to. But as someone who's known both of us for years, I'd value any general insights you might offer. Edward steeples his fingers, considering her words. As Blake's financial advisor, I'm bound by certain ethical obligations. Of course. However, he continues, I also have ethical obligations to report suspected fraudulent activity. He stands, walking to the window. Hypothetically speaking, if a client were moving substantial assets through unusual channels during divorce proceedings, that would certainly raise red flags. Alex remains silent, allowing Edward space to continue if he chooses. After a moment, he turns back to her. I can't discuss Blake's specific investments or holdings with you, Alex, but I can tell you that I've recently raised concerns with him about certain transactions that seemed inconsistent with his stated investment strategy. And how did he respond to these concerns? He informed me that my services would no longer be required for certain aspects of his portfolio. Edward's tone is measured, but Alex detects an undercurrent of professional indignation. After 15 years as his primary financial advisor, I've been effectively sidelined. This confirms Alex's suspicions. When did this change occur? Approximately 4 months ago. Edward returns to his seat. Around the time of the quantum dynamics investment, as it happens. Alex nods. Edward, I've always respected your integrity. If you were to become aware of potentially fraudulent financial activities, what would your ethical obligations be? Edward doesn't hesitate. To report such activities to the appropriate authorities. Financial advisors have a fiduciary duty to act legally and ethically. Even if it meant losing a client? Especially then. Edward meets her gaze directly. No, client is worth compromising one's professional integrity. Alex understands what he's telling her without explicitly violating his client confidentiality. Edward suspects Blake of financial impropriety, but lacks definitive proof. Thank you, Edward. Your perspective is valuable. She rises to leave, then pauses. One more question, if you don't mind. Are you familiar with an entity called Avalon Partners? Edward's expression remains carefully neutral. I couldn't comment on any specific entities that might or might not be part of a client's portfolio. Of course, just curious. Alex extends her hand. Thank you for your time. As Edward walks her to the elevator, he speaks quietly. Alex, Blake has always underestimated you. It's been his greatest blind spot. I'm counting on that, she replies with a small smile. Back in her condo, Alex sends a message to Daniel. Chambers confirmed our suspicions without explicitly violating confidentiality. Blake removed him from portions of his portfolio 4 months ago. Timing coincides with QD investment. Daniel responds within minutes. Board meeting just ended. Blake announced Quantum Dynamics filed for bankruptcy, claimed total loss of investment. Board is concerned but accepting his explanation for now. Alex frowns. Blake is moving quickly to establish his narrative of financial loss. She needs to accelerate their investigation. The next morning brings unexpected news. Alex's phone rings at 7:15 a.m. Vanessa Clark. Alex, have you seen the business news? Not yet. What's happening? Blake called a press conference this morning. He's publicly announcing the quantum dynamics collapse and its impact on Wilson Ventures. He's positioning himself as a victim of fraud. Alex feels a surge of outrage. He's setting up his alibi. Exactly. And he's mentioned the divorce in his statement, implying that you're trying to take advantage of his company's misfortune. Vanessa's tone grows urgent. We need to get ahead of this narrative. Are you available to meet at my office at 9? I'll be there. After ending the call, Alex turns on the financial news. Sure enough, Blake stands at a podium, his expression appropriately solemn as he addresses the cameras. Regret to announce that Wilson Ventures has suffered a significant loss due to what appears to be fraudulent representations by Quantum Dynamics and its leadership. We invested in good faith, believing in their technological innovations and the integrity of their team. It now appears that trust was misplaced. Alex watches with growing anger as Blake portrays himself as a victim, rather than a perpetrator. Even more infuriating, he manages to slip in a reference to their divorce. This difficult business situation comes at an already challenging personal time, as many of you know. I ask for privacy as I navigate both these professional setbacks and my ongoing divorce proceedings. The implication is clear. Blake is positioning himself as a man beset by misfortune on all fronts, worthy of sympathy rather than scrutiny. Alex's phone buzzes with a text from Daniel. He's getting out in front of the story. Smart move. She responds. Smart but predictable. Meet me at Vanessa's office at 9. Need to discuss countermoves. Vanessa Clark's law office's project understated power. Glass and brushed steel with panoramic views of Elliott Bay. When Alex arrives, she finds Daniel already there, engaged in serious conversation with Vanessa. Alex, Vanessa greets her. Mr. Foster has been sharing some concerning information about Wilson Ventures' investment in quantum dynamics. What exactly has he told you? Enough to suggest we may need to involve the SEC, Vanessa says gravely. If Blake is misappropriating company funds and lying to his board and shareholders, that's securities fraud. Do we have enough evidence to make that claim? Alex asks, turning to Daniel. He hesitates. Not definitive proof, but substantial circumstantial evidence. The pattern of transfers, the connection between Blake and Marcus Harrington, the shell companies. Circumstantial evidence isn't enough, Alex points out. Blake would simply deny everything, claiming we're engaging in a smear campaign. Which is why we need to find the smoking gun, Vanessa interjects. Mr. Foster has provided documentation of the suspicious transfers. We need to definitively connect Blake to Avalon Partners. I might have a lead on that, Alex says. Edward Chambers, Blake's longtime financial advisor, has been sidelined from portions of Blake's portfolio. His reaction when I mentioned Avalon Partners was telling. Could he be convinced to cooperate? Vanessa asks. Possibly, if he believes Blake is committing fraud. He made a point of emphasizing his ethical obligations to report fraudulent activity. Daniel leans forward. There's something else. Blake has called an emergency shareholders meeting for tomorrow afternoon. I believe he's going to propose a capital injection into Wilson Ventures to stabilize the company after the quantum dynamics loss. Where would this capital come from? Vanessa questions. He didn't specify. But if my theory is correct, he'd be using the same money he siphoned out through quantum dynamics, Alex finishes, reinvesting it to look like a hero while further obscuring the paper trail. Exactly, Daniel confirms. It's brilliant, in a corrupt way. He extracts money from the company, creates a crisis, then rides to the rescue with the same funds, probably with some additional capital to mask the discrepancy, and emerges looking like a corporate savior instead of a thief, Vanessa concludes. Meanwhile, in divorce court, he claims poverty due to the lost investment. Alex's mind races, considering their options. The shareholders meeting tomorrow, I still own Wilson Ventures stock from before our marriage. Not a controlling interest, but enough to attend as a shareholder. Blake would hate that, Daniel observes with a hint of admiration. Precisely, Alex says. And it might provoke him into making a mistake. Vanessa looks concerned. Confronting Blake publicly is risky. He could paint you as a vindictive ex-wife trying to damage his company out of spite. Not if I come armed. With facts, Alex counters. Daniel, can you provide me with a complete analysis of the quantum dynamics transactions? Nothing confidential. Just what would be available to any shareholder concerned about the company's financial management. I can have that ready by this evening. Good. Vanessa, we need to file a motion requesting a forensic accounting of Blake's assets, specifically looking for connections to Avalon Partners and any other offshore entities. Vanessa nods. I'll prepare the motion today, but the judge may not grant it without more substantial evidence of hidden assets. That's where the shareholders meeting comes in, Alex explains. If I can get Blake to react publicly, to overreact, it strengthens our case for deeper investigation. You're planning to provoke him, Daniel realizes. Alex smiles grimly. Blake has always acted impulsively when he feels challenged, especially by me. It's time to use that trait against him. As they finalize their strategy, Alex feels a mix of anticipation and apprehension. The public confrontation ahead will be uncomfortable, potentially explosive. But it's necessary to expose Blake's deception, both to secure her fair share in the divorce and to hold him accountable for his apparent fraud. The Wilson Ventures headquarters occupies a sleek building in South Lake Union, its glass facade reflecting Seattle's ever-changing sky. Alex arrives for the shareholders' meeting 15 minutes early, dressed impeccably in a navy suit that projects authority and confidence. Security at the reception desk seems momentarily confused by her presence. Mrs. Wilson? I don't believe. You're on the attendance list. Alex produces her shareholder documentation. I own 50,000 shares of Wilson Ventures, acquired prior to my marriage to Blake Wilson. That entitles me to attend any shareholders meeting. The security officer makes a phone call, speaking in hushed tones before reluctantly providing Alex with a visitor badge. The meeting is in the main conference room on the 10th floor. Thank you. I know the way. Alex has attended countless corporate events here during her marriage, always in the role of CEO's wife rather than participant. Today, she enters the building on her own terms. The conference room is already half full when she arrives, executives and major shareholders mingling over coffee. A visible ripple of surprise moves through the room as people recognize her. Whispers follow in her wake as she selects a seat in the second row, directly in Blake's line of sight when he takes the podium. Daniel is already present, seated at the executive table with other Wilson Ventures officers. He gives her an almost imperceptible nod as their eyes meet briefly. At precisely 2:00 p.m., Blake strides into the room, flanked by Thomas Prescott and another man Alex doesn't recognize. Blake falters momentarily when he spots her, genuine shock crossing his features before he composes himself. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending this emergency meeting on such short notice, Blake begins, his voice projecting practiced confidence. As you know, Wilson Ventures recently experienced a significant setback with our investment in quantum dynamics. Alex listens as Blake recounts the now familiar narrative: the promising technology, the substantial investment, the subsequent collapse when technical challenges proved insurmountable. He portrays himself and Wilson Ventures as victims of misrepresentation, carefully avoiding any mention of his personal connection to Marcus Harrington. While this loss is substantial, I want to assure all shareholders that Wilson Ventures remains fundamentally sound, Blake continues. To demonstrate my personal commitment to the company's future, I am prepared to make a capital injection of $30 million to stabilize our position and fund our next wave of investments. Murmurs of approval ripple through the audience. Blake has successfully cast himself as the corporate savior, willing to commit personal resources to rescue the company from the very crisis he likely engineered. I'll now take questions, Blake announces, scanning the room with the confident smile of someone who believes he's won. Alex raises her hand. Blake deliberately looks past her, calling on an elderly gentleman in the back row. After 2 more questions, softball inquiries about future investment strategy, Alex raises her hand again, more insistently. Blake can no longer ignore her without appearing petty. Yes, Mrs. Wilson? His tone manages to be simultaneously polite and dismissive. Alex rises, aware of all eyes on her. Thank you, Blake. I have a question about the quantum dynamics investment. Given the substantial amount involved, $43 million, representing nearly 30% of the company's liquid assets, could you explain why normal due diligence procedures appear to have been bypassed? Blake's smile tightens. I'm not sure what you mean by bypassed. Quantum dynamics underwent the same rigorous evaluation as all our potential investments. That's interesting, Alex responds, because according to public records, Quantum Dynamics had no patents filed, no peer-reviewed research supporting their claimed breakthrough, and a technical team with limited experience in quantum computing. That would typically raise red flags in standard due diligence. The room has gone utterly silent, all attention focused on this unexpected exchange. Mrs. Wilson, Blake says, his voice hardening, with all due respect, you're not familiar with our investment evaluation processes. Perhaps not, Alex concedes. But I am familiar with investment evaluation generally, having worked as an investment strategist at Rainier Capital before our marriage. And I'm familiar enough with securities law to know that investing company funds in a venture owned by a personal friend without disclosing that relationship to the board might constitute a conflict of interest. Shock registers on several faces in the audience. Blake's expression darkens. I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying anything, Alex interrupts smoothly. I'm simply asking whether you disclose to the board that Marcus Harrington, CEO of Quantum Dynamics, was your roommate at Stanford and has been your friend for over 20 years. A board member, Patricia Reynolds, if Alex remembers correctly, leans forward. Mr. Wilson, is this accurate? Was there a prior relationship with Quantum Dynamics leadership? Blake's composure slips momentarily. Marcus and I were acquainted. In college, yes. That hardly constitutes a conflict of interest. His company's technology was revolutionary. And yet, Alex interjects, no working prototype was ever demonstrated to independent experts. No patents were filed to protect this supposedly revolutionary technology. Doesn't that strike the board as unusual for a $43 million investment? Thomas Prescott steps forward, clearly trying to regain control of the situation. Mrs. Wilson, while shareholders are entitled to ask questions, this meeting is not the appropriate forum for what appears to be divorce-related accusations. This has nothing to do with my divorce, Alex states firmly. As a shareholder, I'm concerned about potentially improper use of company funds, particularly given the unusual structure of the investment. 5 separate transfers of just under $9 million each, apparently designed to stay below the threshold requiring additional board approval. A murmur runs through the room. Patricia Reynolds turns to Daniel. Mr. Foster, as CFO, can you confirm this characterization of the transfers? Daniel clears his throat. The investment was structured in multiple tranches. Yes, I raised concerns about this approach at the time. Blake's face has flushed with anger. This is ridiculous. My ex-wife is clearly attempting to undermine me out of spite. I'm simply asking questions any concerned shareholder would ask, Alex counters. Like why a company that received $43 million from Wilson Ventures paid $15 million to a shell company called Horizon Strategic Advisors for unspecified consulting services. Or why that shell company shares an address with Avalon Partners, a Cayman Islands entity established 3 months before the Quantum Dynamics investment. The room erupts in confused conversation. Blake slams his hand on the podium. Enough. This is a transparent attempt to damage Wilson Ventures, and by extension me, during our divorce proceedings. Mrs. Wilson has no evidence for these wild allegations. Actually, Daniel interjects, rising from his seat at the executive table, as CFO, I've documented the transfer patterns Mrs. Wilson referenced. I've also noted the unusual consulting payments she mentioned, which were not subjected to our standard vendor approval process. Blake stares at Daniel, betrayal and rage evident in his expression. You're fired, Foster. On what grounds? Daniel asks calmly. Insubordination. Accessing confidential files without authorization. Take your pick. Patricia Reynolds stands. Mr. Wilson, as head of the audit committee, I think we need to pause here. These allegations, if accurate, warrant investigation before any personnel decisions are made. Blake looks around the room, realizing he's losing control of the narrative. His gaze locks with Alex's cold fury evident in his eyes. This meeting is adjourned, he announces abruptly. The board will convene in my office immediately. Everyone else, please exit the building. As security begins ushering shareholders out, Blake approaches Alex, speaking in a harsh whisper. What the hell do you think you're doing? Asking questions, she replies evenly. Questions you should be prepared to answer if everything's legitimate. You have no idea what you've just done, Blake hisses. When I'm finished, you'll be lucky to get a dime in this divorce. Alex meets his gaze steadily. Is that before or after the SEC investigates Avalon Partners? Blake's expression confirms what Alex had suspected. He's directly connected to Avalon. Before he can respond, Thomas Prescott pulls him away toward an executive elevator. As Alex exits the building, Daniel catches up with her in the lobby. That went even better than expected, he murmurs. Or worse, depending on your perspective. Blake's reaction when I mentioned Avalon was telling, Alex observes. We hit a nerve. The board is already discussing an independent investigation, Daniel informs her. Reynolds has suspended Blake's authority to move company funds pending review. Will you be okay? Alex asks, genuinely concerned for her ally's professional future. Daniel shrugs. Probably not at Wilson Ventures, but I'd rather leave with my integrity intact than be complicit in fraud. As they part ways outside, Alex feels a strange mixture of vindication and apprehension. The public confrontation has achieved its purpose, raising serious questions about Blake's financial dealings and potentially exposing his fraud. But she has no illusions about Blake's response. He will retaliate, and he won't play by the rules. Her phone rings. Vanessa Clark. Alex, what happened? I'm getting calls from reporters asking about allegations you made at the Wilson Ventures shareholders meeting. It's a long story, Alex says. But I think we just got the ammunition we need for that forensic accounting request. Meet me at my office immediately, Vanessa instructs. And Alex, watch your back. Men like Blake Wilson don't respond well to public humiliation. As Alex hails a taxi, she glances back at the Wilson Ventures building, where her husband is undoubtedly already planning his counterattack. For years, he's underestimated her, dismissed her intelligence and capabilities. Today, she's finally shown him, and everyone else, exactly who she really is. The battle is far from over, but for the first time, Alex feels like she might actually win. The media storm breaks less than an hour after the shareholders' meeting. By the time Alex reaches Vanessa's office, headlines are already flashing across financial news networks. Wilson Ventures in turmoil. CEO accused of fraud by estranged. Wife and tech entrepreneur faces questions over suspicious investment. You certainly know how to make an entrance, Vanessa comments, gesturing toward the muted television in her office where footage of Alex leaving the Wilson Ventures building plays on a loop. I didn't realize there would be press outside, Alex admits, sinking into a chair. The adrenaline that carried her through the shareholders' meeting is beginning to ebb, leaving her drained. Blake called that press conference this morning, Vanessa reminds her. The media was already primed for a story about Wilson Ventures. You just gave them a much juicier angle. She slides a stack of message slips across her desk. These arrived in the last 20 minutes. Every business reporter in Seattle wants your comment. Alex dismisses the message slips with a wave. I'm not interested in a media war with Blake. I just want the truth to come out in court. Well, we're certainly closer to that goal now. Vanessa opens a file on her tablet. I've drafted an emergency motion for a forensic accounting of Blake's assets, with specific focus on any connections to Avalon Partners and Horizon Strategic Advisors. Given the public allegations made today, the judge is more likely to grant it. When will you file? First thing tomorrow morning. I've requested an expedited hearing. Alex nods, then jumps slightly as her phone vibrates with an incoming call. Daniel Foster. Daniel, are you okay? She answers, putting the call on speaker. So Vanessa can hear. For the moment, he replies, his voice tight with tension. The board has placed Blake on administrative leave pending an independent investigation. Thomas Prescott is serving as interim CEO. And you? Also on leave, but with pay. The board isn't sure whether to treat me as a whistleblower or a co-conspirator. Yet, a humorless laugh escapes him. Blake is furious. He's threatening to sue everyone. The board, me, you. Empty threats, Vanessa interjects. If he sues, he opens himself to discovery, which is the last thing he wants right now. True, Daniel agrees. But he's not thinking rationally. Alex, you should know he made some concerning statements about you after the meeting. What kind of statements? Alex asks, though she can imagine. He said you'd regret crossing him, that he'd make sure you ended up with nothing. Daniel hesitates. There was something in his tone that worried me. Be careful. After ending the call, Alex turns to Vanessa. Blake's always had a temper, but he's never been physically threatening. People behave unpredictably when they're cornered, Vanessa cautions. And Blake has potentially lost his company, his reputation, and his freedom if these allegations prove true. Where are you staying tonight? My condo in Capitol Hill. Does Blake know the address? Alex hesitates. He knows I have a property there, but I'm not sure if he knows exactly which unit. Consider staying somewhere else for a few days, Vanessa suggests, just until things cool down. Alex starts to dismiss the concern, then reconsiders. Blake's whispered words after the shareholders' meeting had contained genuine malice. Perhaps. Some caution is warranted. I'll think about it, she promises. As Alex leaves Vanessa's office, another call comes through, from an unexpected source. The screen displays Melissa Lawson, Blake's mistress, the executive from Takari Systems. Curiosity overrides Alex's initial impulse to decline the call. Hello? Mrs. Wilson? Melissa's voice is hesitant, lacking the confidence Alex would expect from a tech executive. I hope it's okay that I called. I got your number from Blake's phone a while back. What can I do for you, Ms. Lawson? Can we meet? There are some things you should know about Blake. Alex considers declining, but her instincts tell her this. Could be important. When and where? Tonight? There's a wine bar in Belltown called Vera. 8 o'clock? I'll be there, Alex agrees, ending the call with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. Vera occupies a narrow space with exposed brick, walls and intimate seating areas separated by wine racks. Alex arrives 15 minutes early, selecting a table in the back with a clear view of both the entrance and the emergency exit. Melissa Lawson arrives precisely at 8, scanning the dimly lit space before spotting Alex. She's younger than Alex, expected, perhaps early 30s, with a tense, wary expression that belies her fashionable appearance. Thank you for meeting me, Melissa says, sliding into the seat opposite Alex. I wasn't sure you would. Curiosity won out over pride. Alex admits. What did you want to discuss? Melissa orders a glass of Syrah before responding. I saw the news today, about Blake and the shareholders' meeting. She takes a deep breath. There are things you should know about Blake and quantum dynamics. Things I've been complicit in. Alex's interest sharpens. Go on. First, I want to apologize for the affair. Melissa stares into her wine glass. Blake told me your marriage was over, that you were basically roommates waiting to file the paperwork. Convenient fiction, Alex comments dryly. One of many, as it turns out. Melissa's expression hardens. Do you know what Takari Systems does, Mrs. Wilson? Alex, please. And no, I'm not familiar with your company. We develop quantum computing solutions for government and private sector clients. We were bidding on a major Defense Department contract against several competitors, including Quantum Dynamics. Melissa takes a sip of wine. Blake approached me at a tech conference last year, right after Takari had announced a breakthrough in qubit stability. Alex begins to see where this is heading. He was gathering intelligence. Melissa nods. At first, I thought his interest was genuine, both personally and professionally. He talked about potential synergies between Wilson Ventures and Takari, possible investment opportunities. But that wasn't his real motivation. No. Melissa's voice tightens. He was pumping me for information about our technology, our approach to quantum computing. I didn't realize it at the time, but he was feeding everything directly to Marcus Harrington at Quantum Dynamics. Corporate espionage, Alex murmurs. Exactly. Using me to help his friend's company compete against mine. Melissa's knuckles whiten around her wine glass. I only discovered the truth last month when I overheard a call between Blake and Marcus. They were laughing about how they'd played me. Why are you telling me this now? Melissa meets Alex's gaze directly. Because I filed a report with the FBI yesterday. Corporate espionage is a federal crime. They're investigating Blake and Marcus for theft of trade secrets. Alex absorbs this information, understanding its implications for her divorce case. Does Blake know you've gone to the authorities? Not yet. Melissa's expression is grim. But he will soon. When he finds out I've betrayed him, he'll be furious. That's partly why I wanted to warn you. Blake can be vindictive when he feels wronged. I'm beginning to understand that, Alex acknowledges. Thank you for the warning and for your honesty. There's something else, Melissa adds hesitantly. Something I overheard Blake saying to Marcus on that same call. They mentioned washing the money through the Avalon arrangement before Blake would rescue Wilson Ventures with a capital injection. Alex feels a jolt of excitement. This is the connection they've been seeking. Would you be willing to provide a statement to that effect for my divorce proceedings? I've already included it in my FBI statement, Melissa confirms. I'll have my attorney forward a copy to yours. As they finish their drinks, Alex studies the woman across from her, a fellow victim of Blake's manipulation, albeit in different circumstances. What will you do now? Melissa's smile is rueful. Focus on my career. Try to undo the damage Blake's espionage caused to Takari's competitive position. Move on. She hesitates. What about you? What's next after the divorce? The question catches Alex off guard. She's been so focused on exposing Blake's fraud and securing a fair settlement that she hasn't thought much about what comes after. I'm not entirely sure, she admits. I have my investments to manage. Maybe I'll return to finance professionally. You were an investment strategist, right? Before you married Blake? Alex nods, surprised that Melissa knows this detail. Blake mentioned it once, Melissa explains. He said it was cute that you thought you understood finance. She shakes her head. I should have recognized that casual misogyny as a red flag. We both missed some red flags with Blake, Alex acknowledges. As they part ways outside the wine bar, Melissa touches Alex's arm. Be careful. Blake's facing professional ruin and potential criminal charges. Men like him don't go down quietly. Following morning brings rain, a steady Seattle downpour that matches Alex's somber mood. Despite Vanessa's suggestion, she returned to her condo last night, unwilling to let Blake's threats disrupt her life. Now, as she prepares for her meeting, with Vanessa to discuss the forensic accounting motion, her phone rings. Alex, have you seen the news? Daniel's voice is urgent. No, what's happening? Blake held another press conference this morning. He's claiming that you and I conspired to sabotage Wilson Ventures to drive down the company's value before your divorce settlement. Alex turns on the television, finding Blake's face on the business news channel. His expression projects wounded dignity as he addresses the cameras, saddened that my estranged wife would resort to such tactics. The accusations made yesterday were not only false, but appear to be part of a coordinated effort to damage Wilson Ventures' reputation and stock price before our divorce is finalized. I've discovered that Mrs. Wilson has been in regular contact with our now suspended CFO, Daniel Foster, for weeks. He's trying to flip the narrative, Alex realizes aloud. It gets worse, Daniel continues. He's filed a countersuit in your divorce case, accusing you of hiding assets and conspiring to defraud him of his fair share. Alex laughs without humor. The irony is almost impressive. There's more. The board has hired an outside firm to investigate both Blake's actions and our alleged conspiracy. My apartment was searched this morning with a warrant. They took my computer and phone. Alarm spikes through Alex. What are they looking for? Evidence of collusion, insider trading, anything to support Blake's counter-narrative. Alex, if they get a warrant for your place, they'll find our communications, she finishes. The signal messages, everything. Which proves we were in contact, but not that we did anything wrong, Daniel emphasizes. We were investigating potential fraud, not committing it. But in the court of public opinion, Alex begins. Blake controls the narrative for now, Daniel acknowledges. He's painting us as conspirators against Wilson Ventures rather than whistleblowers. After ending the call, Alex immediately contacts Vanessa, who confirms that Blake has indeed filed a countersuit. His timing is strategic, Vanessa explains. By filing these accusations now, he's muddied the waters. The judge may be reluctant to grant our motion for forensic accounting when there are competing claims of financial impropriety. So we're back to square one? Not exactly, Vanessa counters. Blake's aggressive response actually strengthens our case that he's hiding something. And with the FBI investigating the corporate espionage angle, we have another avenue to discover his financial dealings. What's our next move? I'm still filing our motion today. Meanwhile, protect yourself. If the authorities show up with a warrant, cooperate fully, but call me immediately. Don't volunteer information or try to explain the situation without counsel present. After the call, Alex paces her condo, considering her options. Blake's counterattack was predictable, but its swiftness and comprehensiveness are concerning. He's not just defending himself, he's actively working to destroy her credibility and possibly her financial independence. Her doorbell rings, startling her from her thoughts. Through the security camera, she sees Daniel Foster standing in the hallway, looking harried. "Daniel?" she questions, opening the door. "What are you doing here?" "Sorry to show up unannounced," he says, stepping inside. "But after they searched my place, I was worried they'd come for yours next. I wanted to warn you in person." "I appreciate that, but we probably shouldn't be seen together right now. It only strengthens Blake's conspiracy narrative." Daniel runs, a hand through his hair which looks like it hasn't been combed today. "I know, He trails off, seeming uncharacteristically uncertain. "What is it?" Alex prompts. "This is my fault," he says finally. "I approached you about Blake's financial dealings. I dragged you into this investigation." "I'm pretty sure I dragged myself in," Alex counters. "And we were right about Blake's fraud. We just underestimated how far he'd go to cover it up." Daniel moves to the window, looking out at the rain-drenched city. "When my father fled the country after his embezzlement was discovered, he left my mother to face the creditors, the legal inquiries, the social humiliation. I swore I'd never let that happen to anyone else if I could help it." He turns back to her. "Now I feel like I've put you in exactly that position." Alex is struck by the genuine remorse in his expression. Throughout their alliance, Daniel has been professional, focused on exposing Blake's fraud. This is the first time she's seen him truly vulnerable. "Daniel, I chose to pursue this," she reminds him. "I could have accepted Blake's initial settlement offer and walked away. This was my decision. Still, I never expected him to retaliate so aggressively." "I did," Alex admits. "Blake has always responded to challenges with overwhelming force. It's how he built his business, crushing competitors rather than outperforming them." Daniel moves to sit on the couch, suddenly looking exhausted. "What do we do now?" The question catches Alex off guard, not because of its content, but because of the shift it represents. Until now, they've been allies of convenience, united by a common goal. This simple "we" suggests something more. "We stick to the truth," Alex says, sitting beside him. Blake is creating noise to distract from the facts, but the evidence of his fraud still exists. The FBI investigation into the corporate espionage will uncover his connection to quantum dynamics. The forensic accounting, if the judge grants it, will reveal the Avalon Partners link. And if the judge doesn't grant it, then we find another approach, Alex says with more confidence than she feels. Blake isn't as clever as he thinks he is. He's left traces of his activities. Daniel studies her with a mixture of admiration and curiosity. "You know, when we first met at that divorce meeting, I thought you seemed diminished somehow. Like someone who had been pushed into the background for too long." "That's exactly what had happened," Alex acknowledges. "But that's not who you really are, is it?" Daniel continues. "You've been building your own empire right under Blake's nose all these years." Alex smiles slightly. "Not an empire, just Independence. It's more than that, Daniel insists. I've reviewed thousands of investment portfolios in my career. Yours shows remarkable strategy and insight. You have a genuine talent for this. The compliment, a professional acknowledgement of her skills rather than the superficial praise Blake occasionally offered for her appearance or social graces, brings unexpected warmth. Thank you, she says simply. That means a lot, especially coming from someone with your financial background. A moment of silence stretches between them, comfortable rather than awkward. Alex realizes that despite the stress and uncertainty of their situation, she feels more at ease with Daniel than she had with Blake for years. I should go, Daniel says eventually. If anyone is watching your building, my presence here won't help your case. Where will you stay? Your apartment might be watched. I've booked a hotel under my brother's name, he explains. I'll lay low for a few days while this initial media frenzy dies down. As he rises to leave, Alex impulsively catches his hand. Be careful, Daniel. Blake will be looking for someone to blame, and you're an easier target than I am. Daniel squeezes her hand briefly. I've dealt with men like Blake before. Not as powerful, perhaps, but cut from the same cloth. I'll be fine. After he leaves, Alex stands at the window watching the rain, thinking about the unexpected turn her life has taken. 6 months ago, discovering Blake's affair had seemed like the worst possible betrayal. Now she almost feels grateful for it. Without that catalyst, she might have remained in her carefully compartmentalized life indefinitely, the diminished person Daniel had initially perceived, playing the role Blake had assigned her. Her phone buzzes with a text from Vanessa. Motion. Filed. Hearing scheduled for tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Blake's attorney is already filing objections. Tomorrow will bring another confrontation, another step in this increasingly complex chess match. For tonight, Alex allows herself a moment of quiet reflection, recognizing that amid the chaos and uncertainty, she's finding her way back to herself, the woman she was before Blake, but stronger now, more confident in her abilities and worth. Her. Phone buzzes again. Daniel this time. Just heard from a contact at the FBI. They're executing a search warrant at Quantum Dynamics headquarters tomorrow. Thought you should know. The pieces are moving, the truth slowly emerging. Alex texts. Back a simple thank you, but finds herself smiling as she does so. Their professional alliance has evolved into something more personal, a connection based on mutual respect and a shared commitment to justice. Whatever happens in court tomorrow, Alex knows she's no longer facing Blake's machinations alone. For the first time in years, she has a true ally, perhaps even a friend, in this fight. And that, she realizes, might make all the difference. The King County Courthouse stands as a monument to justice amid downtown Seattle's modern architecture. Alex arrives for the hearing on the forensic accounting motion to find reporters clustered at the entrance, cameras raised expectantly as she approaches. Mrs. Wilson, do you have any comment on your husband's allegations of conspiracy? Alex, is it true you're working with the suspended CFO to tank Wilson Ventures stock? Did you hide assets from your husband during your marriage? The questions fly at her like arrows. Alex maintains her composure, moving through the crowd with Vanessa at her side. Mrs. Wilson is confident the truth will emerge through proper legal channels, Vanessa states firmly. We have no further comment at this time. Inside, the hallway outside courtroom 3B is equally crowded. Legal teams, financial experts, and spectators drawn by the high-profile nature of the case. Blake stands with Thomas Prescott and another attorney Alex doesn't recognize, his expression darkening when he spots her. Vanessa guides Alex to the opposite side of the hallway. Remember, today's hearing is narrowly focused on our motion for forensic accounting. Judge Harmon will likely hear arguments from both sides before making her decision. And Blake's countersuit alleging I'm hiding assets? That's scheduled for a separate hearing next week. One battle at a time. The bailiff. calls their case, and the crowd files into the courtroom. Judge Eleanor Harmon, known for her no-nonsense approach and meticulous attention to financial details, surveys the assembled attorneys with mild disapproval. "Quite the audience for a procedural motion," she comments dryly. "Ms. Clark, you may proceed with your motion." Vanessa rises, outlining their request for a forensic accounting of Blake's assets, with specific focus on connections to Avalon Partners and Horizon Strategic Advisors. She details the suspicious pattern of transactions through quantum dynamics, Blake's undisclosed relationship with Marcus Harrington, and the concerning timing of Blake's claim of financial hardship. "Your Honor, we have reasonable cause to believe Mr. Wilson has deliberately concealed assets to avoid their inclusion in the divorce settlement. Given the complexity of the financial arrangements involved, a standard disclosure is insufficient. Only forensic accounting will uncover the full extent of Mr. Wilson's holdings." Blake's new attorney, introduced as Gregory Palmer, a specialist in high-profile divorce cases, counters with equal conviction. "Your Honor, this motion is a transparent attempt to distract from Mrs. Wilson's own financial impropriety. Mr. Wilson has recently discovered that his wife has maintained substantial separate investments throughout their marriage without his knowledge. Furthermore, evidence suggests Mrs. Wilson has conspired with Wilson Ventures' suspended CFO to damage the company's reputation and stock value prior to finalizing the divorce settlement. Which isn't a problem because you've done nothing wrong," Vanessa reminds her. "Your separate assets were legitimately maintained with proper documentation. Blake, on the other hand..." They're interrupted by Blake, who approaches with a cold smile. "Enjoy your little victory while it lasts, Alex. You have no idea what's coming." "More empty threats, Blake?" Alex responds evenly. His smile doesn't waver. "Not empty. By this time tomorrow, you'll understand exactly what happens to people who cross me." He glances at his watch. Tick-tock. Before Alex can respond, Blake turns and walks away, leaving an unsettling chill in his wake. "What was that about?" Vanessa asks. "I'm not sure," Alex admits. But Blake doesn't bluff. He's planning something. Back at her condo, Alex tries to focus on preparing documentation for the forensic accountants, but Blake's ominous warning keeps intruding on her thoughts. She's just about to call Daniel to update him on the hearing when her phone rings. An unknown number. "Hello? Mrs. Wilson, this is Special Agent Carter with the FBI. We need to speak with you regarding Daniel Foster and certain financial transactions at Wilson Ventures." Alex's heart rate accelerates. "What about Daniel?" "Ma'am, we'd prefer to discuss this in person. Are you available to come to our Seattle field office this afternoon?" "Am I under investigation?" Alex asks directly. "At this time, we're gathering information about Mr. Foster's activities. Your name has come up in our investigation." Alex calls Vanessa immediately after ending the call. Her attorney advises caution, but agrees to accompany her to the FBI meeting. The Seattle FBI field office occupies several floors of a nondescript building downtown. Alex and Vanessa are escorted to a conference room where two agents wait. Carter, a serious-looking woman in her 40s, and Reynolds, a younger male agent who takes notes throughout the interview. "Mrs. Wilson, we appreciate your cooperation." Agent Carter begins. "We're investigating potential securities fraud and wire fraud in connection with Wilson Ventures' investment in quantum dynamics." "I understand," Alex replies. "My attorney and I have been raising concerns about that very issue. Yes, we're aware of the allegations you've made. However, our investigation has uncovered some unusual financial movements that we'd like to discuss with you." Agent Reynolds slides a folder across the table. Inside are bank statements showing transfers from an account in Alex's name to an offshore entity called Pinnacle Investments Limited. Can you explain these transactions? Agent Carter asks. Alex studies the statements, confusion giving way to alarm. "These aren't my transactions. I've never heard of Pinnacle Investments Limited. The account these transfers originated from is in your name, Mrs. Wilson, opened 3 years ago at First National Bank of Seattle. That's impossible, Alex insists. I don't have an account at First National. Vanessa intervenes. Agents. My client maintains several legitimate investment accounts, all properly documented. This account appears to be fraudulent. We've verified the account opening documents, Agent Reynolds states. They bear Mrs. Wilson's signature and social security number. Then someone has committed identity theft, Alex argues. I never opened this account or authorized these transfers. The questioning continues for nearly 2 hours, covering Alex's relationship with Daniel Foster, their communications about Wilson Ventures' finances, and her knowledge of quantum dynamics. Throughout, Alex maintains her innocence regarding the Wei-Chi mysterious bank account while being transparent about her investigation with Daniel. Mrs. Wilson, Agent Carter says finally, we have evidence suggesting that funds were diverted from Wilson Ventures to Quantum Dynamics, then to Horizon Strategic Advisors, and ultimately to this account in your name before moving offshore. The pattern suggests an elaborate embezzlement scheme. The implication is clear. The FBI suspects Alex and Daniel of stealing from Wilson Ventures, not Blake. That's absurd, Alex responds. Why would I embezzle from my husband's company when I have my own substantial assets? Perhaps to extract more than your fair share in the divorce, Agent Reynolds suggests. Or maybe as retaliation for your husband's affair, Vanessa interrupts. My client has cooperated fully with your questions. Unless you're charging her with something, this interview is over. The agents exchange glances. We're not making any arrests at this time, Agent Carter acknowledges. But Mrs. Wilson, don't leave town. We'll have more questions as our investigation continues. Outside the FBI office, Alex tries to process what just happened. Someone set me up, she realizes aloud. Blake must have created that account in my name. It's a sophisticated frame-up if that's the case, Vanessa agrees. We need to contact Daniel immediately. If they're targeting you with fabricated evidence, he's likely in their crosshairs too. Alex tries Daniel's phone repeatedly, but each call goes straight to voicemail. A growing sense of dread fills her as they return to Vanessa's office to strategize. Blake's warning makes sense now, Alex says. By this time tomorrow, you'll understand exactly what happens to people who cross me. He knew about the FBI investigation, or orchestrated it himself. If Blake falsified bank records to frame you, that's another serious crime, Vanessa points out. We need to gather evidence of the fraud. How? The FBI already believes I'm guilty. By proving the account is fraudulent, we'll need to examine the account opening documents, signature cards, identification used, everything the bank relied upon to open the account. Can we subpoena those records? Yes, but it will take time. Meanwhile, Vanessa hesitates. What? Is it? I'm concerned about the forensic accounting we just requested in court. If the accountants find this fake account, they'll draw the same conclusions the FBI did, Alex finishes grimly. By evening, there's still no word from Daniel, and Alex's concern has deepened to genuine worry. His hotel doesn't acknowledge having a guest under either his name or his brother's. His apartment building confirms the FBI executed another search warrant that afternoon. Alex returns to her condo to find a package waiting outside her door. No shipping label, just her name handwritten on the envelope. Inside is a USB drive, and a note in Daniel's handwriting. If you're reading this, they've probably come for me. This is insurance. Everything I've discovered about Blake's fraud. Keep it safe. Trust no one but Vanessa. I'm sorry, Dee. The cryptic message sends a chill through Alex. She takes the USB drive to her computer, finding it contains hundreds of documents, financial records, emails, internal Wilson Ventures memos, all pointing to Blake's systematic looting of his own company through the Quantum Dynamics investment. Most damning is a series of emails between Blake and Marcus Harrington discussing the Avalon arrangement and how to clean the money before reinvesting. There's also evidence that Blake created the fraudulent account in Alex's name, including emails to a private investigator requesting her personal information and signature samples. As Alex reviews the files, her doorbell rings. Through the security camera, she sees two FBI agents, Carter and Reynolds from the afternoon's interview. "Mrs. Wilson," Agent Carter calls through the door. "We have a warrant for your arrest on charges of wire fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit securities fraud. Please open the door." Panic floods Alex's system. She grabs her phone to call Vanessa, but before she can dial, a text message arrives from an unknown number. "Don't resist arrest. Evidence clearing you is already in motion. Trust me. D. Taking." A deep breath, Alex opens the door. "I'm innocent," she states as Agent Carter begins reciting her rights. "This is a frame-up orchestrated by my husband." "You'll have the opportunity to present your defense in court," Agent Reynolds responds, securing handcuffs around her wrists with unexpected gentleness. As they lead her from the building, Alex notices the news vans already assembling outside, somehow tipped off about her arrest. Blake's thoroughness in orchestrating her humiliation is almost admirable in its completeness. The processing at the Federal Detention Center is surreal. Fingerprinting, mugshot, the exchange of her designer suit for a jumpsuit. Throughout, Alex maintains a calm exterior while her mind races, replaying Daniel's message. "Evidence clearing you is already in motion." What evidence? Where is Daniel now? She's permitted one phone call, which she uses to contact Vanessa. Her attorney promises to arrange bail as quickly as possible and advises Alex to say nothing to anyone until she arrives. In the holding cell, Alex sits alone, the gravity of her situation sinking in. Blake has orchestrated the perfect revenge, not only framing her for financial crimes, but ensuring her reputation will be destroyed regardless of whether the charges eventually stick. The media coverage alone will taint her name forever in financial circles. Hours pass before Vanessa arrives with news that bail has been denied due to flight risk concerns, another of Blake's machinations, no doubt. They're holding Daniel as, well, Vanessa informs her. He was arrested this morning at a ferry terminal. They're claiming he was attempting to flee to Canada. That doesn't make sense, Alex argues. Daniel wouldn't run, and he left me evidence clearing us both. What evidence? Alex explains about the USB drive, which Vanessa promises to secure from the condo immediately. Blake is behind all of this, Alex insists. He created that account in my name, planted the money trail, probably even tipped off the FBI. I believe you, Vanessa assures her, but the evidence against you is substantial and meticulously arranged. Blake has clearly been planning this for some time. Can you get a message to Daniel? Find out what he meant about evidence already? In motion? I'll try, but he's being held incommunicado pending his arraignment. After Vanessa leaves, Alex is returned to the holding cell to await her own arraignment the following morning. Sleep proves impossible as she analyzes every angle of Blake's scheme, searching for weaknesses or oversights she might exploit. Around midnight, a guard approaches. Wilson, you have a visitor. Surprised. Legal visits aren't typically permitted. This late, Alex is escorted to a small meeting room where Edward Chambers, Blake's financial advisor, waits. Edward, how did you get in here at this hour? I have certain connections, he explains vaguely, and this couldn't wait until morning. What's going on? Edward glances at the door, lowering his voice. Daniel Foster contacted me yesterday. He suspected Blake might make a move against both of you and wanted insurance. What kind of insurance? Evidence, Edward replies. I've been documenting Blake's suspicious financial activities for months. The offshore accounts, the shell, companies, the fraudulent transactions. As his financial advisor, I had access to information even Daniel couldn't obtain. Why would you risk your career to help us? Edward's expression hardens. Because Blake crossed a line. using client funds to create fraudulent accounts, framing innocent people for his own crimes. It violates everything I stand for professionally and personally. So, you're Daniel's insurance policy, Alex realizes. In a manner of speaking, I've already provided documentation to the FBI proving the account in your name was created using forged documents. I've also supplied evidence linking Blake directly to Avalon Partners and the money trail from Wilson Ventures through quantum dynamics. Hope flickers in Alex's chest. Will it be enough? The FBI is reviewing everything now, Edward confirms. I expect they'll have questions for Blake very shortly. Why didn't Daniel tell me about this arrangement? For your protection. The less you knew, the more convincing your surprise would be when the FBI came calling. Blake has informants everywhere. Your genuine shock at the accusations helped sell your innocence. Alex processes this information, a mixture of relief and lingering anxiety washing through her. What happens now? The FBI will continue their investigation, but with a new focus. Your arraignment will proceed tomorrow, but I suspect the charges will be dropped within days as the evidence against Blake mounts. And Daniel? His situation is more complicated. As CFO, he had fiduciary responsibilities to report suspicious activities immediately rather than conducting his own investigation. But given the circumstances, I believe he'll face minimal consequences. As Edward rises to leave, Alex catches his sleeve. Thank you for believing us, for doing the right thing. He smiles slightly. Blake once told me you were just a housewife who didn't understand finance. I've managed your husband's investments for 15 years, and I've never seen anyone more reckless or short-sighted in their financial decisions. It's ironic that he underestimated you so completely. After Edward's departure, Alex is returned to her cell with a renewed sense of hope. Blake's scheme is unraveling, not through any dramatic confrontation, but through the quiet integrity of people like Edward Chambers and Daniel Foster who refuse to be complicit in his fraud. The night passes slowly, but Alex no longer feels the crushing weight of injustice. By morning, news had spread through the detention center of another high-profile arrest. Blake Wilson, taken into custody at his Queen Anne mansion on charges of wire fraud, securities fraud, money laundering, and false statements to federal investigators. At her arraignment, Alex pleads not guilty to all charges. The prosecutor, notably less confident than expected, doesn't oppose the defense motion for release on personal recognizance. By afternoon, Alex walks out of the federal courthouse a free woman, temporarily at least, as the charges remain pending, while the FBI continues its investigation. Vanessa waits outside holding a copy of the Seattle Business Journal whose headline reads, Wilson Ventures CEO arrested, Blake Wilson accused of massive fraud scheme. The tables have turned, Vanessa observes. Blake's bail was set at $10 million. Even if he makes it, he'll surrender his passport and be under house arrest with electronic monitoring. And Daniel? Released an hour ago. He's being treated as a cooperating witness rather than a co-conspirator. As they walk to Vanessa's car, Alex spots a familiar figure waiting nearby. Daniel, looking exhausted but relieved. He approaches cautiously, uncertain in his expression. You took a huge risk, Alex says simply. It was calculated, he replies with a faint smile. Edward was always our ace in the hole. Blake treated him with the same dismissive arrogance he treated everyone he considered beneath him. He never imagined his financial advisor would turn against him. You could have told me about your arrangement with Edward. I couldn't risk it. Blake has always had people watching you. If you'd known about Edward's involvement, you might have inadvertently given something away. Daniel hesitates. I'm sorry. For the night in jail. It was the only way to make your innocence completely convincing. Alex considers this, recognizing the strategic thinking behind Daniel's approach. It worked, she acknowledges finally. Blake is the one facing serious charges now. The evidence Edward provided is damning, Daniel confirms. The FBI found Blake's complete records of creating the fraudulent account in your name, including communications with a man who specializes in document forgery. They also discovered Blake's direct ties to Avalon Partners. He's the sole beneficial owner. So it's over? Daniel shakes his head. The criminal investigation is just beginning. Blake will fight the charges with every resource at his disposal. But as far as your divorce is concerned, he smiles. Blake's in no position to hide assets anymore, and with his financial crimes exposed, the court will likely view your claims very favorably. As they stand in the afternoon sunlight, the weight of the past few days, the arrest, the night in jail, the uncertainty and fear, begins to lift from Alex's shoulders. Blake's ultimate betrayal, framing her for his own crimes, has backfired spectacularly, exposing his fraud far more completely than their original investigation might have done. What now? Alex asks, the question encompassing far more than just the immediate future. Now, Daniel replies, we rebuild, both of us. The simple words carry a promise that extends beyond their alliance against Blake, a recognition that something deeper has formed between them through this crucible of crisis and betrayal. Not romance, not yet, but a foundation of trust and respect upon which something meaningful might eventually grow. For the first time since discovering Blake's affair 6 months ago, Alex feels genuinely optimistic about the future, a future shaped by her own choices rather than Blake's expectations or limitations. The path ahead remains challenging, with legal proceedings and public scrutiny to navigate, but she no longer walks it alone. Blake's dismissal of her as just a housewife has proven to be his most catastrophic miscalculation. In underestimating her, he created the very circumstances that would lead to his downfall and her liberation. 3 months pass like a whirlwind of depositions, court appearances, and media scrutiny. Seattle's winter rains give way to spring sunshine as Alex arrives at the King County Courthouse for what should be the final hearing in her divorce proceedings. The reporters who once swarmed her like predators now maintain a respectful distance, their narrative having shifted as Blake's criminal case unfolds. Ready for this? Vanessa asks as they approach the courthouse steps. More than ready, Alex confirms. It's time to close this chapter. Inside courtroom 3B, the atmosphere feels markedly different from previous hearings. Blake sits with his attorney, Gregory Palmer, his once immaculate appearance now showing signs of strain. His house arrest ankle monitor peeks out from beneath, his trouser cuff, a visible reminder of his diminished status. Judge Harmon surveys the assembled parties with her characteristic directness. I've reviewed the forensic accounting reports for both parties, as well as the documentation regarding Mr. Wilson's pending criminal charges. Before we proceed with the final settlement determination, are there any additional matters either party wishes to address? Palmer rises. Your Honor, given the ongoing nature of the criminal proceedings against my client, we request a continuance of the divorce settlement until those matters are resolved. Objection. Vanessa counters immediately. Mr. Wilson has repeatedly used delay tactics throughout these proceedings. The criminal case could continue for years, and there's no legal justification for postponing Mrs. Wilson's right to conclude her divorce. Judge Harmon considers this briefly. Objection sustained. The criminal proceedings are separate from this divorce action. We will proceed today. She turns to Palmer. Any other preliminary matters? No, Your Honor. Ms. Clark? None from our side, Your Honor. We're prepared to proceed. Judge Harmon nods. Very well. Having reviewed the comprehensive financial documentation provided by both parties and the forensic accountants, I'm ready to rule on the division of assets. As the judge begins detailing her decision, Alex finds herself strangely detached from the specifics of the financial settlement. The numbers, millions in assets, property valuations, investment accounts, seem almost abstract, less significant than the sense of reclaimed identity she's gained through this ordeal. Regarding Mrs. Wilson's separate property, Judge Harmon continues, the court finds that the investment portfolio established and maintained by Mrs. Wilson throughout the marriage was funded primarily through her premarital assets and the household allowance provided by Mr. Wilson without restriction on use. These assets, currently valued at approximately $18.7 million, are confirmed as Mrs. Wilson's separate property and are not subject to division. A small smile touches Alex's lips. Her housewife hobby of investment management has yielded a fortune that ensures her financial independence regardless of the divorce settlement. As for Wilson Ventures, the judge continues, the forensic accounting has established that Mr. Wilson engaged in systematic financial impropriety, diverting company assets for personal use and attempting to conceal these activities during divorce proceedings. This behavior constitutes dissipation of marital assets, which this court does not reward. Blake shifts uncomfortably, his expression darkening as Judge Harmon outlines the consequences of his actions. Mrs. Wilson is entitled to 50% of Mr. Wilson's legitimate ownership stake in Wilson Ventures, as valued prior to the quantum dynamics fraud scheme. Additionally, the court awards Mrs. Wilson the Queen Anne residence and its contents, with Mr. Wilson responsible for any outstanding mortgage obligations. The ruling continues, methodically dismantling Blake's financial empire and awarding Alex her fair share, plus compensatory damages for Blake's attempts to defraud the court and frame her for his crimes. When Judge Harmon finally concludes, Blake rises abruptly. "This is outrageous. She's getting everything while I face criminal charges that could put me in prison." "Mr. Wilson," Judge Harmon warns, "control yourself or I'll hold you in contempt." "This entire proceeding has been biased against me from the start," Blake persists, his face flushed with anger. "She was just a housewife. I built everything we had." "That's enough, Mr. Wilson," Judge Harmon states firmly. "Your characterization of your wife's contributions demonstrates precisely the attitude that has worked against you throughout these proceedings. This court recognizes that partnership in marriage takes many forms, and denigrating a spouse's role does not strengthen your position." As Blake is escorted from the courtroom by his attorney, Alex remains seated, processing the finality of the moment. After 12 years of marriage and nearly a year of contentious divorce proceedings, it's over. "Congratulations," Vanessa says quietly. "The settlement exceeds our initial expectations." "It's not really about the money," Alex realizes aloud. "It's about accountability, recognition." Vanessa nods in understanding. "You were never just anything. Blake's biggest mistake was failing to see that." Outside the courthouse, spring sunshine bathes the city in golden light. Alex pauses on the steps, breathing deeply, savoring the sense of closure. "Alex?" She turns to see Daniel approaching, casually dressed in jeans and a blue button-down, looking more relaxed than she's ever seen him. Their contact has been limited during the past 3 months due to the ongoing criminal investigation, with most communication channeled through attorneys. "I heard the ruling went in your favor," he says, stopping a respectful distance away. "News travels fast." "I may have had someone texting me updates from inside the courtroom," he admits with a small smile. Alex studies him, noting the subtle changes in his appearance and demeanor. Without the pressure of their investigation and Blake's retaliation, Daniel seems younger, more at ease. "How are you?" she asks. "Really?" "Good, actually. The FBI has formally classified me as a cooperating witness rather than a target of the investigation. I've been consulting with the prosecution on the technical aspects of Blake's financial schemes. And professionally, Wilson Ventures can't have been too pleased with your role in exposing Blake's fraud." Daniel shrugs. "The board actually offered me a position helping to restructure the company post-Blake. I declined. After everything that happened, I needed a fresh start. So what's next for you?" "I've accepted a position with Reynolds Financial Group, ethical investment management for high-net-worth individuals." He hesitates. "Patricia Reynolds, the board member who first questioned Blake at the shareholders' meeting, was impressed by my willingness to stand up for what's right, even at personal cost. That's wonderful, Daniel. You deserve it. An awkward silence falls between them, filled with unspoken possibilities and the weight of shared experience. Would you like to grab coffee? Daniel asks finally. To celebrate your victory today? Alex considers the invitation, aware of the potential complexities. Their relationship had developed under extraordinary circumstances: mutual opposition to Blake's fraud, shared danger when Blake retaliated. Now, with those pressures removed, what remains? I'd like that, she decides, but not to celebrate. A victory. Blake's downfall isn't something I take pleasure in, despite everything he did. Daniel nods in understanding. Then to celebrate your new beginning. At a small cafe several blocks from the courthouse, they settle at a corner table reminiscent of their first meeting at Baker Street Coffee, which now seems a lifetime ago. Have you decided what you'll do next? Daniel asks after they've ordered. With Wilson Ventures, I mean. The settlement gives you a significant ownership stake. I'm planning to divest gradually, Alex explains. The company needs stability right now, not another major shareholder transition. Once things settle, I'll redirect those assets into my own investment portfolio, which you managed brilliantly throughout your marriage, Daniel observes. Your returns over the past decade outperformed most professional fund managers. Alex smiles at the professional acknowledgement. I always loved investment strategy, even before I met Blake. It was the perfect outlet during those years. Intellectual challenge, measurable results, and completely under my control. Have you considered returning to professional finance? The question catches Alex by surprise, though she's been pondering similar thoughts herself. Actually, yes. I've received a few inquiries from investment firms interested in my approach. Apparently, my housewife hobby has attracted some attention in financial circles. I'm not surprised. Your performance metrics are impressive by any standard. Daniel hesitates. Would you consider starting your own firm? With your track record and personal story, you'd have a unique perspective to offer clients. I've thought about it, Alex admits. A boutique investment firm focused on long-term growth rather than quarterly profits. Ethical investing with solid returns. You'd be excellent at it, Daniel says with conviction. And given your new public profile, you'd have clients lining up. Alex laughs softly. My public profile as the woman whose husband tried to frame her for financial crimes isn't exactly what I'd consider a professional asset. You're underestimating how this story has resonated with people, Daniel counters. The financial press has portrayed you as the underestimated spouse who quietly built her own fortune while being dismissed as just a housewife. That's powerful. Alex considers this perspective. The media narrative had indeed shifted dramatically once Blake's fraud was exposed. What began as scandalous coverage of her arrest had transformed into something approaching admiration as details of her investment success emerged through the forensic accounting. Perhaps you're right, she acknowledges, though I never intended to become some kind of feminist financial icon. Sometimes the roles we don't seek find us anyway, Daniel observes, like becoming a whistleblower against my own CEO. Their conversation flows easily from there, moving beyond the trauma that initially bonded them to discover shared interests and compatible perspectives on everything from investment philosophy to favorite Seattle restaurants. The easy rapport they established during their investigation has evolved into something more natural, unburdened by crisis. I've missed this, Daniel admits as they linger over second cups of coffee. Talking with you. During the past 3 months, with all the legal complications, I've missed it too, Alex acknowledges. You were the first person in years who saw me as more than Blake's wife, who recognized my capabilities rather than dismissing them. Daniel's expression grows serious. I meant what I said outside the courthouse that day after our release. About rebuilding. Both of us. What exactly did you mean by that? Alex asks, meeting his gaze directly. That we both have the opportunity to redefine ourselves post-Blake. To create lives and identities that aren't shaped by opposition to him or recovery from what he did. Daniel hesitates. And that maybe we could help each other in that process. As friends? To start with, he says carefully. I value our connection too much to rush into anything more complicated while we're both still finding our footing. Alex appreciates his honesty and consideration. I think that's wise. We've been through an extraordinary experience together. But that's not necessarily the same as knowing if we're compatible in normal life. So, friends then, with the potential for reevaluation once we've both had time to establish our new normals? I'd like that, Alex agrees, finding herself genuinely looking forward to discovering who Daniel Foster is beyond the crisis that brought them together, and who she herself will become in this next chapter of her life. 6 months later, the offices of Morgan Investment Strategies occupy a light-filled suite overlooking Elliott Bay. Alex, who has reclaimed her maiden name professionally while maintaining Wilson for legal purposes, stands at the window, watching ferries crisscross. The sound as she finalizes details for the firm's official launch party. The caterer confirmed for Thursday, her assistant Taylor reports. And the Seattle Business Journal wants to know if you're available for a follow-up interview next week. They're doing a feature on women entrepreneurs in finance. Schedule it for Tuesday afternoon, Alex decides, and confirm that the focus will be on the firm's investment approach, not my personal history. Of course, the intercom buzzes, announcing a visitor, Edward Chambers, who has become both mentor and client since Alex established her firm. The space looks wonderful, Edward comments as Alex gives him a tour. Professional but welcoming, very different from the aggressive masculine energy at most investment firms. That's intentional, Alex explains. I want clients to feel comfortable, here, regardless of their financial expertise. No intimidation tactics, no unnecessary jargon. They settle in her office where Edward reviews the firm's initial client portfolio. You've attracted impressive commitments for a startup operation. Several of these names surprised me. Which ones? Patricia Reynolds, for one. She's traditionally very conservative with her personal investments. Alex smiles. Patricia appreciates our emphasis on ethical governance and sustainable returns, and perhaps she feels a certain loyalty after her role in exposing Blake's fraud. Speaking of Blake, Edward says carefully, have you been following the case developments? Not closely, Alex admits. Vanessa keeps me updated on anything that might affect the settlement, but otherwise, I've tried to focus on moving forward rather than looking back. He accepted a plea deal yesterday, Edward informs her. 5 years in federal prison, forfeiture of most remaining assets, and permanent bar from serving as an officer or director of any public company. The news lands with less impact than Alex might have expected even a few months ago. Blake's crimes and their aftermath have gradually diminished in importance as she's built her new life. How does it feel? Edward asks. Knowing he's finally facing consequences? Alex considers the question thoughtfully. Not as satisfying as I might have imagined. It feels like justice, certainly, but there's no joy in seeing someone's life destroyed, even when they tried to destroy mine. Edward nods in understanding. You've moved beyond him. That's the healthiest outcome possible. After Edward leaves, Alex finds herself reflecting on the remarkable journey of the past 18 months, from trophy wife to divorcee, to accused criminal to successful entrepreneur. The transformation seems almost cinematic in its dramatic arc, yet each step was grounded in capabilities and determination she'd possessed all along. A text message interrupts her thoughts. Dinner tonight to celebrate your launch week? I promise. Minimal shop talk and maximum distraction from pre-event nerves. Daniel. Over the past 6 months, their friendship has deepened and evolved through weekly dinners, occasional weekend hikes, and honest conversations about their experiences and, Aspirations. Daniel has become an integral part of her support system as she's established her firm, offering insights from his own financial background without ever overstepping or assuming authority. Alex replied affirmatively, looking forward to sharing the news about Blake's plea deal and discovering once again how little power Blake now holds over her emotions or future. Later that evening, at a small Italian restaurant in Ballard, Daniel listens attentively as Alex describes her final preparations for the launch party. "You've accomplished so much in such a short time," he observes. "Most new investment firms take years to attract the client base you've assembled in months." "I had a head start," Alex acknowledges. 12 years of investment experience and a certain notoriety that opened doors. "You've turned what Blake intended as a weapon against you into your greatest strength," Daniel points out. "The just a housewife narrative has become part of your origin story as a financial innovator." Alex smiles. Life has a way of creating poetry from what begins as tragedy. As their dinner progresses, Alex finds herself studying Daniel with new appreciation. Their relationship has evolved beyond their shared trauma, revealing genuine compatibility and mutual respect. What began as an alliance against Blake's fraud has transformed into something far more meaningful, a connection founded on seeing and valuing each other's true selves. "I've been thinking," Daniel says as they linger over dessert, "about that agreement we made 6 months ago, to start as friends and reevaluate once we'd established our new norms." "I've been thinking about that too," Alex admits. "And," Daniel prompts, his expression both hopeful and cautious. "I think we've both done the work we needed to do," Alex says carefully. "You've built your career at Reynolds Financial based on your own merit, not as an extension of the Blake Wilson saga. I've established Morgan Investment Strategies as a legitimate enterprise, not just a reaction to Blake's dismissal of my capabilities. We've defined ourselves beyond our opposition to Blake," Daniel summarizes. "Exactly. And in that process, I've discovered that what I value most about you has nothing to do with our shared history. It's who you are, your integrity, your intelligence, your kindness." Daniel reaches across the table, taking her hand. "I feel the same way. What began as professional admiration has grown into something much deeper. I care about you, Alex. Not as a fellow victim of Blake's machinations, but as the remarkable woman you've always been." As they leave the restaurant hand in hand, walking along the waterfront under a canopy of stars, Alex feels a profound sense of completion. She has reclaimed not just her financial independence, but her full identity as an investment strategist, as an entrepreneur, as a woman capable of both professional success and personal connection. Blake's dismissal of her as just a housewife now seems not merely inaccurate but absurdly short-sighted. In underestimating her, he created the very circumstances that allowed her true capabilities to emerge and flourish. 3 days later, at the launch party for Morgan Investment Strategies, Alex stands before a gathering of clients, colleagues, and financial press, prepared to formally introduce her firm to the world. Daniel watches from the front row, his expression conveying both pride and affection. "Thank you all for joining us this evening," Alex begins. Morgan Investment Strategies represents both a continuation and a new beginning. For years, I managed investments quietly, building a portfolio that outperformed market averages through careful analysis and strategic planning. Now, I'm privileged to offer that same approach to clients who share our vision of ethical, sustainable wealth creation. As she outlines the firm's philosophy and approach, Alex feels none of the nervousness she had anticipated. Instead, there's a calm confidence born of knowing exactly who she is and what she has to offer. "Someone once dismissed me as just a housewife," she acknowledges near the conclusion of her remarks. "It was meant as a limitation, a boundary defining what I could and couldn't achieve. Instead, it became a reminder that we all contain multitudes, capabilities, and potential that others may not recognize or value." She raises her glass in a toast. To see beyond limitations, those imposed by others and those we sometimes place on ourselves. To recognize that none of us is just anything. We are as complex and capable as we allow ourselves to be. As applause fills the room, Alex catches Daniel's eye, sharing a moment of private understanding amid the public celebration. Their journey together began with an unlikely alliance against fraud and betrayal. It continues now as a partnership of equals, two people who see each other clearly and value what they see. In the end, Blake's attempt to diminish and destroy her had exactly the opposite effect. By dismissing her as just a housewife, he created the catalyst for her transformation into exactly who she was always meant to be. Herself, fully realized and embracing all her capabilities. Not just anything, but everything she chooses to become. The penthouse office of Morgan Investment Strategies now occupies the entire top floor of a sleek building in downtown Seattle, a testament to the firm's remarkable growth. Floor to ceiling, windows showcase panoramic views of Elliott Bay on one side and the Seattle skyline on the other, bathed in the golden light of a summer evening. Alex Morgan stands at the window, watching the sunset paint the city in amber and rose. At 42, she radiates a confidence that comes from knowing exactly who she is and what she's capable of achieving. Her firm now manages over $500 million in assets for clients who appreciate her unique investment philosophy. Sustainable growth, ethical governance, and transparent operations. The Davidson Portfolio Review is complete, announces Melissa Chen, Alex's chief investment strategist. Their renewable energy investments outperformed projections by 12% this quarter. Excellent, Alex responds, turning from the window. Send them my personal note with the report. Robert will appreciate the validation of his decision to pivot toward green tech. As Melissa leaves, Alex checks her watch. 6:30 p.m. The office has emptied for the day, her team of 15 heading home to their families or out to enjoy Seattle's perfect summer evening. She should be leaving too. Dinner reservations at Canlis await. Her phone buzzes with a text from Daniel. Running 10 minutes late, traffic on I-5. Don't start without me. Today's too important. Alex smiles, typing back, the restaurant will hold our table. Take your time. Today marks the second anniversary of Morgan Investment Strategies' official launch, and coincidentally, the one-year anniversary of her engagement to Daniel Foster. Their relationship had evolved organically from cautious friendship to deep partnership, built on mutual respect and genuine understanding. As she gathers her things to leave, Alex's eye catches the framed Seattle Business Journal cover on her office wall. From just a housewife to financial powerhouse, how Alex Morgan transformed divorce disaster into investment empire. The article had been published on the firm's first anniversary, chronicling her journey from underestimated spouse to successful entrepreneur. The elevator doors open on the lobby, where Vanessa Clark waits, elegant as always in a tailored suit. Perfect timing, Alex greets her former attorney, now friend and client. I didn't expect to see you today. I was meeting with clients nearby and thought I'd drop by to offer congratulations in person, Vanessa explains, embracing Alex warmly. 2 years of exceeding expectations. I'm not surprised, but I am impressed. Join us for dinner, Alex offers as they exit the building. Daniel's running late anyway, and we'd love your company. Actually, I can't stay long, Vanessa says, her expression turning serious. I wanted to tell you in person rather than over the phone. Blake is being released next week. The news lands with surprising gentleness. Early release? Good behavior, cooperation with ongoing investigations into Marcus Harrington's other schemes. He'll be on supervised release for 3 years. Alex absorbs this information, searching for the emotional response she might once have expected. Anger, anxiety, even fear. Instead, she finds only a calm acknowledgement. Thank you for telling me, she says simply. Vanessa studies her face. You're taking this remarkably well. Blake hasn't been part of my life for a long time, Alex explains. His release doesn't change anything about who I am or what I've built. Still, be careful, Vanessa cautions. His release conditions prohibit contact with you, but Blake has never been good at respecting boundaries, Alex finishes with a wry smile. I'll be vigilant, but I refuse to let his existence disturb my peace. After parting with Vanessa, Alex walks the few blocks to her favorite park, finding a bench overlooking the water. She needs a moment to process this news before meeting Daniel. Not because she's upset, but because she wants to understand her own reaction, or rather, her lack of significant reaction. 2 years ago, news of Blake's impending release might have thrown her into anxious preparation. A year ago, it might have triggered anger or resentment. Now, it registers as little more than a footnote. Relevant information, but not life-altering. Her phone rings. Edward Chambers, who has become both mentor and father figure since the divorce. Alex, I just heard about Blake's release, he says, without preamble. Are you all right? Completely fine, she assures him, realizing as she says it that it's true. It's strange. I thought I'd feel something more significant, but it's almost like hearing about a distant acquaintance. That's what true healing looks like, Edward observes. Not pretending he never affected your life, but reaching a place where his actions no longer hold power over your emotions. I suppose you're right, Alex agrees. Though I should credit Blake with one thing. Without his dismissal and betrayal, I might never have fully embraced my capabilities. His underestimation became my motivation. The ultimate irony, Edward chuckles. By trying to diminish you, he catalyzed your greatest success. After ending the call, Alex sits a moment longer, reflecting on the extraordinary journey of the past 3 years. From trophy wife to divorcee to accused criminal to successful entrepreneur, each transition building upon the last, creating the woman she is today. Blake's imminent release feels like the closing of a circle rather than the opening of old wounds. The man who once dominated her life has been reduced to peripheral status, known but irrelevant to her daily existence and future plans. Daniel finds her there, slightly breathless from hurrying. Sorry I'm late, he apologizes, kissing her cheek before sitting beside her. Quarterly review meetings ran long, and then traffic was a nightmare. It's fine, she assures him, leaning into his solid presence. Vanessa stopped by the office. Blake's being released next week. Daniel tenses slightly. How do you feel about that? Surprisingly neutral, Alex admits. There was a time when my entire identity was shaped around him. First as his wife, then as his victim, then as his adversary. Now he's just someone I used to know. Daniel's expression softens with understanding. That's the greatest victory, isn't it? Not the financial settlement or even proving his fraud, but reclaiming yourself completely. Exactly. Alex agrees, standing and offering her hand. Now, I believe we have a dinner reservation to celebrate something far more important than Blake Wilson's release date. As they walk hand in hand toward Canlis, Alex glimpses their reflection in a storefront window, 2 people moving forward together, neither defined by past traumas nor dependent on each other for validation. Their partnership is a choice, strengthened by mutual respect and shared values rather than necessity or circumstance. At the restaurant, with its sweeping views of Lake Union and the Seattle skyline, Daniel raises his glass. To Morgan Investment Strategies, 2 remarkable years and many more to come. And to us, Alex adds, to build something meaningful from the ruins of what was meant to destroy us. Later that evening, as they stroll along the waterfront, Daniel broaches the subject again. Are you sure you're okay with Blake's release? We could postpone the wedding if you need time to adjust to him being back in Seattle. Alex stops, turning to face him fully. Blake Wilson has taken enough from me. He doesn't get to affect our wedding date, too. She smiles, squeezing Daniel's hand. Besides, I'm rather looking forward to becoming Alex Foster. Not keeping Morgan professionally? Morgan Investment Strategies will retain its name. Brand recognition matters in finance. But personally, she shrugs. I've built my identity, beyond any last name. Changing it doesn't diminish who I've become. As they continue their walk under the stars, Alex reflects on the journey that brought her here. Not just the dramatic events of the divorce and its aftermath, but the quiet moments of rebuilding that followed. The painstaking work of establishing her firm. The careful evolution of her relationship with Daniel from alliance to friendship to love. The daily choices to define herself by her capabilities rather than others' perceptions. Blake had once dismissed her as just a housewife, never recognizing the intelligence, determination, and resilience beneath the role he'd assigned her. His underestimation had become first her wound, then her weapon, and finally, most powerfully, irrelevant to her self-definition. In 1 month, she will marry Daniel Foster in a small ceremony overlooking Puget Sound. In 6 months, Morgan Investment Strategies will open its first branch office in San Francisco. Next year, she'll publish a book on investment strategy for women building financial independence. The future stretches before her, filled with possibilities of her own making, a life defined not by opposition to Blake's limitations, but by embracing her own expansive potential. What are you thinking about? Daniel asks, noticing her contemplative expression. Alex smiles, gesturing toward the horizon where the last light of day meets the first stars of evening. Just appreciating the view from here. It's been quite a journey. The best ones always are, Daniel replies, drawing her close as they continue forward, leaving the shadows of the past behind them. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.